You can get one of the cable testers to test cables. There are many brands and types out there, but there are times when we have to test an XLR cable, and we're not able to get to both ends of the cable to use a standard cable tester or even a digital multimeter, because maybe one side of the cable end is on the other side of a wall, or maybe just the 100-foot audio snake is already set up. One end at the front of house sound and the other end is on the stage. And lastly, maybe your setup is all wired and you would have to pull the cables just to test them. With both of these scenarios, we can't use a cable tester or a DMM to test for continuity and proper wiring. But here is an idea I came up with to be able to check your cables without having to pull the cable to be able to test it. It's a cable shorting plug, or at least that is what I am calling it. Here is how you make this shorting plug. It's pretty simple to make. The only skill you require is some soldering skills. You will need 3 things for the single male shorting plug and 3 for the female shorting plug. 1. A male XLR connector. I like the Nutric type. They are durable and easy to solder to. It should be about $2.50 to $3 per connector. 2. Any single pole double throw switch. I would recommend a toggle type. It will be easier to use and Radio Shack has them for about $4. 3. Any 2 conductor shielded cable. The quality of the cable is not important here. Use any type you can find, and you will only need a short piece. You could also just use a cheap or old XLR cable you don't need. Cut off the XLR connector with about 15 centimeters or 6 inches of cable still attached to the connector, and strip off the ends of the wires to be able to solder them to the switch. Make sure you know what wires of the cable are connected to what pins of the XLR, as you will need to know this to connect it correctly to the switch. And for the female shorting plug, you will need 1. A female XLR connector. Again, I like the Nutric type. They are durable and easy to solder to. It should be about $2.50 to $3 per connector. 2. Any single pole double throw switch. I would recommend a toggle type. It will be easier to use. Radio Shack has them for $4. 3. Any 2 conductor shielded cable. The quality of the cable is not important here. Use any type you can find and you will only need a short piece. The shorting plug is made by connecting or soldering an XLR connector to a single pole double throw switch. First, take your cable and strip off some of the insulation at each end of the cable. Solder XLR pin 1 to center position, pin 2, on the switch. Use the shield from the cable to make this connection. Next, solder XLR pin 2 to right position, pin 1, on the switch. Use the lighter conductor wire to make this connection. Finally, solder XLR pin 3 to left position, pin 3, on the switch. Use the darker conductor wire. Do this for both the male and female shorting plugs. Once done, you have added a new tool to be able to test cable runs. The shorting plugs can save you time and money. We can now test a snake cable or tie lines without having to move them. And here is how you use the shorting plugs. First, grab your DMM, put it on the continuity setting. You must check to make sure no shorts are present in the cable or tie line you are testing. Check between pin 1 and pin 2 on the panel jack you're wanting to check. Next, check between pin 1 and pin 3 on the same panel jack. Now check between pin 2 and pin 3 on the same panel jack. Lastly, make sure that none of the pins have any continuity to the XLR shell or panel itself. So check pin 1 to shell, pin 3 to shell, pin 2 to shell. Now that you have checked for any shorts in the cabling, we will plug in the shorting plug onto the channel you're checking, and on the other side of the panel or cable, test pin 1 and 2. You should hear a beep for continuity if the switch is shorting pin 1 and 2. This is how this works. If you hear the continuity beep, you have verified that the wiring from pin 1 and pin 2 are correct. You have created a loop by using the shorting plug. Now then, test pin 1 and 3. You should not hear a beep for continuity, because our switch is not making a loop in pin 1 and 3. At this time, now flip the switch on the shorting plug and do the test again. Test pin 1 to pin 2. You should not hear a continuity beep. Then test pin 1 and 3 and you should hear a beep for continuity. Once you have done all tests and it has passed all of them, you know you have a perfectly wired and working cable tie line or snake channel. So that's it. It's a simple and inexpensive way to check out cables, tie lines, and snake cables where you can't use a standard cable tester. I hope this helps you out, and you enjoyed the presentation. I plan on making many more helpful videos and share my 30 years experience in both audio engineering and the electronics repair fields. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this tutorial and click liked, sharing the knowledge. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is part of the Noisy Art Productions. Noisy Art has left the building. Oi!